Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our first quarterly info session. We're designing these sessions to help keep our clients informed about the things that can improve their business and make their business life easier. In today's session, we're going to give a brief overview of the importance of employee onboarding, why it matters, and what can be done to help keep you on track. I'm Hayley Jenkins. I'm the Senior Bookkeeper and Trainer here at Ion Books. I've been a bookkeeper for 19 years, and a large part of that has been processing payroll, employee data. Assisting me today is Elodie, who is our Client Engagement Officer, and Keelan, who is our Operations Manager, aka today's tech support. So a quick rundown of what we're going to be covering today, starting with why effective employee onboarding matters to you, to your employees, and to us as your bookkeepers. We're going to go through some key documents required, as well as a brief step-by-step process. We'll then go over some technology options, and then we'll cover some common challenges and what can be done to overcome them. And then finally, we'll finish with a Q&A and a wrap-up. Now, a bit of a disclaimer before we start. All the advice given here is general advice. We're not HR advisors here, and so should you need specific HR advice, for example, which awards your employees fall under, we advise that you contact the correct authorities, such as Fair Work or HR advice providers. The topics we are going to cover today are the kinds of things we see clients struggling with. Hopefully, this session today will just give you a bit of an idea of the directions you should be heading in. So, why does effective employee onboarding matter? Firstly, first impressions count. This is your new employee's first meaningful interaction with your company. In today's competitive job market, culture and values significantly influence an employee's decision to join a company. A well-structured onboarding process sets clear expectations, provides essential information, and integrates new employees into their team, which eases the stress of starting a new job. A smooth onboarding experience can lead to happier employees, fewer staff leaving, and increased productivity. Next is legal requirements. You need to ensure compliance with ATO and Fair Work regulations to protect both you and your company. Having the required documents in place also helps you to maintain insurance compliance so that you don't void your coverage. You also need to verify if contractors are considered employees for superannuation purposes. Now, why is this part important? Because we've had clients in the past who have had to pay 5 years worth of super to someone who they thought was under a contractor agreement, but was actually deemed to be an employee for super. So, what are some ways that we can establish if they are considered a contractor or an employee? Now, just because you have a written agreement in place with your contractor stating that they are required to pay their own super, you need to be careful. If contractors meet certain requirements as outlined by the ATO, they will need to follow much of the same onboarding processes as a regular employee. In addition to their ABN and insurance documents, they will need to provide their superannuation details. Establishing if a contractor is classed as an employee for super purposes can be done by checking the ATO website, but essentially the ruling checks the following points. Control. So who controls how, when, and where the contractor works? Integration. Is the contractor performing work as a representative of your business? Mode of remuneration. Are they paid an hourly or per job basis? Ability to delegate. So can the contractor delegate their work to someone else that works for them, or must they complete the work themselves? Then we have provision of tools and equipment. So do you provide the tools, or do they have their own? And risk. Who bears the commercial risk arising out of injury or defective work? Essentially, if you control when, where, and how the contractor works, that they can't delegate their work, that they're paid hourly, and you provide the tools, they are classed as an employee for super purposes, and you will still need to pay them super in addition to their hourly rates. So just bear this in mind when you're drawing up their contracts. So now we're going to run through some of the key documents that are required when a new employee starts. They're going to fall under these main headings. So personal and ID, tax and financial, contracts, compliance and legal. So now we're going to look at those in a bit more detail. So let's get started on the technical bits. Personal identification documents is our first section. So to begin with, you will need to provide your employees with some kind of personal information form, which has their full name, address, phone number, date of birth, email address, etc. And don't forget to include a section that includes the employee emergency contact details. For contractors, you will also need to provide a space for their ABN. For those on working visas, you may also require their right to work documentation, which they can access from the Visa Entitlement Verification Online or VIVO website. Next is tax and financial documents. So the TFN declaration form, which we've all filled out, no doubt, can no longer be downloaded from the ATO website. The ATO is now encouraging employees to link their MyGov accounts to the ATO, and then through that portal, they can then add new employment details. You will need to provide the employee with your ABN, and they will need to know their employment type, both of which should be on a letter of offer, to be able to use this method. Ask them to be careful when selecting the tax-free threshold. Employees working for multiple businesses don't always realise that they can only claim the tax-free threshold from one employer at a time. They should be claiming it at the place of employment where they work the most hours. Also, technically, employee TFNs should not be included in emails. So please don't just flick your bookkeeper an email with all the details in a nice long list. While it is required information, it's too easy for scammers to get hold of. This is why secure onboarding software solutions are so important. Bank account details is next, which is pretty straightforward. It's the information required to set up your direct deposit payments for your employees' wages. So BSB, account number, and the name the account is in, not the name of the bank. We get that one a lot. And lastly, a standard choice super form. This is another form which can be downloaded from the ATO website. The employee needs to state whether they want to use their existing superannuation fund or your company's default fund. All businesses should have chosen a default fund. It is important to note that these details can also be provided through the MyGov ADO portal when the TFN declaration is completed. So 2 birds, 1 stone. All right, next section is our employment contracts. So first up is a letter of offer and employment contract. Essentially, you need to provide them with a letter stating a formal offer in writing, and then once they accept it, you can provide them with a formal employment contract, which will need to meet national employment standards. The business.gov.au website has a free employment contract tool, which can help with building an employment contract which meets these standards. The National Employment Standards, or NES, are minimum employment entitlements. There is a summary, which is a document that can be downloaded from the Fair Work website, and this actually needs to be given to all employees when they commence employment. If you have one, you can provide your employees with a handbook. Generally, these are like a welcome guide, which outlines your company culture, policies and procedures, emergency contact details, things like that. It is also a requirement that you provide your employees with a detailed job description highlighting their duties and responsibilities. And should it be required based on the nature of your business, you may need to provide your employees with an NDA. For example, I used to work for a very high net wealth individual. I'm allowed to say that part out loud, but I am bound by an NDA to never provide any more details than that, even all these years later. Our next section is compliant and legal documents. So first and foremost, you must always provide your employee with access to your company policies and procedures. Employees must have access to these at all times. Some examples are the equal opportunity and anti-discrimination policies, dress code, code of conduct, and these days, even social media guidelines. Depending on the industry you work in, you may need to provide your employees with workplace safety forms, such as pre-starts. The worksafe.wa.gov.au website has some great checklists for different industries to help to guide you. Next is emergency contact information. You need to provide your emergency contact details in case of work-related incidents or medical emergencies. This is so employees know who they need to contact if something goes wrong. You should already have their emergency contact details on file from their employee detail forms. If you have any contractors working for you, you should have their public liability insurance certificate of currency on file. And lastly, a signed acknowledgement of software policies, data protection, and confidentiality if they're going to be handling sensitive company information. All right, so now we're going to go through a bit of just a brief step-by-step of an onboarding process. Starting with pre-boarding. So before day one, what can be done before the employee's first day? A letter of offer can be sent to the employee, which they will need to accept. This should generally be done before the employment contract is drawn up. The employee contract can then be sent to the employee for a review before their first day. You can prepare employment forms or send forms via email. You need to decide, though, which forms can be completed by the employee before they start and which can be completed on their first day. If required, you could send them for a pre-employment medical and you can set up their workstation. Day one, this is generally going to be your welcome and orientation day. So introduction to your company culture, team members and their workspace. You're going to introduce them to their managers, especially touch on hierarchy so employees are aware of direct and indirect managers. You could even provide them with a welcome package explaining workplace expectations. You would conduct a health and safety induction, which includes reading and acknowledgement of policies and procedures. Don't forget to get the acknowledgement part. And ensure their employment contract is signed and returned. For training and development, you would discuss with the employee their initial training schedule and any mandatory compliance training. And then after that, you could set up any job-specific training or any additional certifications they may require. And lastly is integration into the team. So plan team introductions, let them know when their lunch breaks are, let them know of any social events planned, and possibly even assign them a mentor or a buddy to assist with transition into the team. Right. How's everyone going with all that? That's a bit much, isn't it? So let's go over some software solutions which can help make all this so much easier. The four I'm going to briefly touch on today are Employment Hero, Deputy, X on Board, and MyOb Onboarding. Employment Hero is a cloud-based all-round HR solution. Simply by adding the employee's name and email, you can then manage everything from the recruitment process, onboarding, contracts, reviews, and document management. The employee is sent an email by Employment Hero asking them to add their personal details and to upload any required documents such as licenses. Some pros of this one is they have a template library for things like letter of offer, employment agreements, and performance reviews. They have an onboarding checklist to help keep you on track. Employment Hero can also keep track of things like anniversary or renewal dates for things like driver's license renewals and performance review dates. And Employment Hero can integrate with other software packages like Xero, so the data can be shared seamlessly with your bookkeeper, which in turn helps us to process your payroll on time and accurately. Some cons of this one, it's a tier-based subscription service. And so to unlock more of the advanced features, you have to pay a bit more each month. The light plan starts from around $23 per employee per month. The next plan up is $40 per employee per month, and the unlimited plan is $59 per employee per month. The other con of this one is the employee information needs to be synced over to your bookkeeping program so that payroll can be processed, and that's a manual process that needs to be done. Next up is Deputy. Now, Deputy is a cloud-based scheduling and timesheet management program, which also includes an onboarding feature. Once the employee has completed their onboarding process, which again is as simple as clicking the link in the email they receive and adding their details, you can then manage their schedules, They can submit timesheets and leave applications, and you can send out communications to your employees. Some pros of this one is it has some award interpretation built in so that you can be sure that you're paying your employees correctly. It integrates with bookkeeping programs for swift payroll processing, which in turn can keep down your bookkeeping costs. And another good thing about it is employees can be assigned to locations and then areas within those locations so that you can do detailed reports on department costings. Some of the cons of this one is, again, it's an additional monthly cost. For the premium, though, it's about $8 per month per employee, so it's not too bad. But then if you want Deputy HR, which includes document management, it's an additional $2.50 per employee per month. Now we've got X On Board. Now, X On Board is a free onboarding tool for use with Xero Payroll. This program provides a self-service portal which asks for employee details, emergency contact details, their tax file number declaration, bank account details, and super details. It will send you a notification once the employee has completed their details, so you can then sync it with Xero. It handles a whole bunch of compliance requirements that employers have. It automatically sends fair work statements and also sends tax file number declarations to the ATO. Additionally, it sends automatic reminders to the employees to complete their onboarding should they be lagging a bit. Some pros of this one is it automatically collects payroll information and seamlessly integrates it directly with Xero Payroll. It can also connect to the ATO and find your employees' stapled superannuation funds. It's also supported by superannuation funds. So if your employee selects to use your company default super fund, they will see an offer to join the affiliate fund first. It's also a great option to get started with automated onboarding because the best part about this one is it's free. Some cons of this one. There is still minor employee setup required in Xero after you've synced it. Like you still have to select their payroll calendar and you still have to enter their wage information. The electronic signature for things like employment contracts has not been implemented yet, but that will be coming in the next few months. And it doesn't have guides and contracts like some other HR-leaning solutions. It's really just syncing the employee details to Xero in a simple manner. And lastly, we've got MyOb. So for clients already using MyOb, you have the option of using MyOb's employee self-onboarding process. This is built into MyOb. And so once you've added the employee, it's ready to go without having to do any additional steps. Same with Employment Hero, you add the basic information of the employee and then an email is sent to them with a link to add their personal details. Some pros of this one is once the employee adds their info, no additional integration or syncing is required. There's no additional cost for this one. And you do not need to wait for the employee to come back to you with their personal details to be able to set up the rest of their payroll information, such as start dates, employment types, salary or wages info. Some cons of this one is it's only for payroll-related information. It's not for HR management, and no documents can be uploaded by the employee for this one. So why do we recommend using onboarding software? Well, not only because it can help you streamline the process, but it can help you keep compliant with government agencies. And there's also a technological advantage. Employee forms don't need to be a physical bit of paper anymore. So one advantage of that is digital document signing. So with tools like DocuSign and Adobe Sign, e-signatures for employment contracts, NDAs, these can be used from most devices. No longer are you reliant on printing forms, having them be physically signed, wait for the sign to be returned, losing the forms, finding them shoved under a keyboard months later. Another advantage is cloud storage for document access. So by storing documents in the cloud in places like Google Drive or OneDrive, it ensures you and employees can access necessary documents at any time. So with all of that, I'm sure you can see some common challenges that quite a few employers have trouble with. So starting with managing paperwork, a challenge there is that there are so many forms required by both your business and government agencies. Some solutions to this are using technology to deal with high volumes of paperwork. So programs like the ones we have touched on earlier, like the onboarding software, and cloud-based document storage can help you keep everything electronic. It could also help you to create a checklist which suits your business to keep track of everything required when you have a new starter. You can save it as a template in your cloud-based software for use every time. So for ensuring compliance, the challenge there is making sure you're covered legally. Some employers just aren't sure what they are and aren't required to do. So using a compliant checklist and getting the assistance of a HR consultant could help you stay up to date with changing laws and regulations. You could use software like Employment Hero, which can help guide you. And lastly, employee experience. The challenge there is that an employee might start on their first day and you might seem a bit scattered, for lack of a better term. So some of the solutions there is just take the time to think about creating an onboarding process, both from a paperwork and training perspective, but also from a personal perspective of the employee, which is welcoming and engaging. All right, that actually brings us to the end of today's session. What we've had a look at is the importance of employee onboarding to give them a great start in your business, the paperwork required to be compliant and legal. We looked at 4 solutions for seamless, secure, and digital employee onboarding. Now, I would recommend that all of our clients review their own onboarding processes, update any necessary forms, and consider digitizing paperwork for efficiency. At Ion Books here, we can help you research and set up any of those onboarding tools if you think they would be a help with your business. So before we finish up, does anyone have any questions about the things we've covered? If you do, can you please type them into the Q&A box? All right, I've got a good question here from Laura. Laura has asked, does Xero have its own onboarding? You have mentioned MyOb has its own. That's actually a really good question. So at this point in time, Xero does not have its own native onboarding solution. They rely on app integrations such as Deputy and Employment Hero, and some free alternatives like X on Board. Now, we do prefer Xero Payroll to MyOb, and this is because the payroll package within Xero is much more advanced than that of MyOb. It's much more user-friendly, and by using Xero, we can help keep your payroll processing time down. And one more question here. Can you provide us with a checklist of all required forms? We can provide you with a basic list with things like employee details, the NES, SUVA forms, but what we can't provide you with is a list specific to your business. You will need to get the advice of a formal HR advisor for that one. Software like Employment Hero can actually help you build that one on your own, but then tailor it to your workplace. But essentially, we can only give you generic information and a generic list. We can't actually say what is specific to your business. Rightio, there doesn't seem like there's any more questions. A nice quick one today. All right, so look, thanks guys. Thank you very much for attending. As always, we're here to help. And if you feel like you do need help, feel free to flick your Ion Books bookkeeper an email and we can get the ball rolling and we can help you set up any of those softwares if you would like to use them. Thanks guys, and we'll hopefully see you for the next one.